Hello, I want to welcome you all to the power of our story. We are a place of safety and connection for those who protect us. And we do this through sharing stories in a healing and judgment-free zone. So please reach out to us if you're a protector or even a caring bridge builder or a clinician. Please reach out to us if you'd like to come and join our conversation. So today, I want to welcome Mark Greene. He is the author of UnSealed, a Navy SEAL's Guide to Mastering Life's Transitions. A little more about Mark. He is a retired Navy SEAL who faced an accident that stripped away his protective armor, leaving him unsealed and vulnerable. His journey from college athlete to dropout, SEAL training to enlisted SEAL, and sniper to civilian was met with many adversities. However, amidst the challenges, Mark found strength in his community. He never faced his struggles alone. Navigating his difficult transitions and aiding fellow veterans, Mark identified 6 predictable phases in any transformation. Embracing these phases serves as a reminder to welcome change in life's transitions with confidence and tenacity. So, Mark, welcome. It's so good to have you here.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
So, tell us about yourself. Tell us your story and kind of where all that took you in your passions these days.
Okay, so I will start as I was third generation military. My grandfather was in the Army, my dad was in the Air Force, and I joined the Navy. My journey kind of started off unconventionally because I was a college athlete and played quarterback, and I was going to be the next Randall Cunningham or Warren Moon or something like that. And I suffered a really horrific injury to my shoulder, and you can't throw a football, you can't play quarterback, and all of a sudden my football career was over suddenly, and I didn't plan for it. It wasn't even on the horizon. I was 20 at the time, maybe 21. I think I was 20 at the time. So you're just like, yeah, I'm indestructible. And then took a really bad injury on my shoulder, and all of a sudden I was just Mark going to college. And I wasn't in college because I wanted to go to college and get an education. It was just a means to an end to go to the next level, whatever that was. And my parents were, um, we were poor growing up, so paying for college wasn't an option. So athletics was the thing. So when my career was ended, this really great friend of mine named Jeff said, "Mark, don't worry about it. We're gonna go be Navy SEALs after this." And this is back in 1992, I think. And there was no internet, there was no YouTube, nothing. It was just if you happen to find a book or watch a Charlie Sheen movie or Steven Seagal or The Rock or something, I mean, that's really all you had. Dick Couch had a book from Vietnam, and Carlos Hathcock had a book on sniping and stuff, but there was not really a lot of information. But he showed me this video that was just fascinating. It showed how tough SEAL training was, and they opened up with a mission they were going on, and I was like, okay, this is it. And I really just got obsessed with the SEAL teams after that. But I was still supposed to go to college, so I started off in at Miami of Ohio, and then went up to Kent State where I got my injury. Stopped playing football, stayed up there for I think another semester, maybe another year, and then transferred back to Miami of Ohio because that's where all my friends were. I only lived an hour away from campus. So then I was just kind of going through the motions, and finally just ended up flunking out of college and working at a video store. There's some people with gray hair in the audience, so Blockbuster Video was where I worked, and I had the khakis and the blue shirt, and Be Kind, Please Rewind was on all the videotapes. So a friend of mine showed up and said, "Hey, what are you doing here? You're supposed to be off doing these great things, and you're handing out video." cassettes at a Blockbuster, and I didn't have an answer for them. And so that was the first thing. It's like, you know what? I should be doing something else. And then this gentleman came into the video store, and he said, "Hey, do you know this movie about this one girl who turns into an alien and then she starts eating people and just goes on a killing spree?" And he's like, "Yeah, yeah. I think the movie's called Speckies." And then I said, "Sir, I think you mean species." And he's like, "Yeah, species." And at that point, I was done, done. So I said, "I'm 24 years old. I have this one opportunity to not do this anymore." And I was like, "I'm 24. If I'm going to do the SEAL thing, I have to go now." So I literally joined the Navy the next day, went into their holding pipeline, and uh, classed up for my boot camp in July of '96. And then, I was strong kid, push-ups, swimming, sit-ups, to pass the SEAL test. But Sarah, I'd never done pull-ups. So I hop up on the pull-up bar and squeak out two of the worst pull-ups you've ever seen. And I needed that because I failed. I was like, okay, you're not ready for what you're planning on doing. So I at at night I would, over the bars of the bathroom, there was this bar, but it was sharp. So I stole some towels, and each night I would, after hours, I would go and do pull-ups until I had 4 weeks to go from 2 to 10. And so 2 nights before I gotten 10, 8 perfect, 9 pretty good. The 10th one was ugly, but I got it. And so the next day I took the test and did the swim fine and did the push-ups fine. Sit-ups were fine. And then, the crucible pull-ups was coming. So I did the first 5, first 6, just beautiful, right? And 7 was getting a little tired. And then 8, I was 95% there. Like the bar was at my chin. Right. And for some act of God or something, somebody distracted the instructor for a second. And as he looked away, in my mind, I was like, I have one shot at this thing, and I'm not going to let this stupid pull up hold me back. So as soon as he turned his head, I put my chin over the bar and lifted myself up and got the 8th pull up. And he looked at me. We exchanged a look. It was like, I know you cheated. And I was like, I don't know what you're talking about. Uh, so I got my 8th pull up, and we did a run afterwards, and I passed my SEAL test. And that was the first step. So I went to my school to get my MOS, or A school in the Navy, as a mineman in Ingleside, Texas, and didn't really research the Navy, um, and didn't really know what those ship things were. But I had my first tour, and I'm 6'2", and walking through the ship, I just keep banging my head because everything's so small. And then they're like, "And here's where you're gonna sleep," and it's these little, like, small racks is what they're called, and they're little sardine cans. So I climb into my rack, and I don't fit at all. And I'm scrunched in there. And I said, well, I'm not going to do this Navy thing either. So I had to take my SEAL test one more time. And then I showed up in 1997, January, at the Naval Special Warfare Center in class 212. And had some struggles because it's just a hard course, and you're not, no matter how in shape you are, you're not prepared for that. It's nonstop. It's San Diego, and then again, I didn't really research San Diego. It's like, yeah, it's the Southern California. It's got to be great. So yeah, so we get in uniform, and first thing they say, all right, Greene, go get wet. And you have to go jump in the ocean, but you have to have a swim buddy. So I grab first kid next to me. So I'm excited. I jump into the water, and I did not know the water in San Diego was 52 degrees in January. So, like, took my breath away, and pins and needles. And I was like, oh my God, this is awful. And the kid next to me looks over at me and says, hey, Mark, you take care. I hope you make it. and he quit on the spot. And I was like, well, I was like, you didn't even give it a chance. I mean, you give it a chance, but he's just like, no, I'm good, man. This is not for me at all. But but I really just fit in to the program. And even though I had some struggles, I sought help when I needed it. And there was an instructor who was having an aneurysm, I thought, just so enraged at the students. So I said, well, I can do this on my own, or I can talk to the enraged instructor and ask for help. So as he's yelling at the students, it takes a breath, and I'll say, hey, instructor, I need to come in on extra time and learn how to swim. No kidding. He broke character and was like, yeah, 8 o'clock on Saturday. That work? And I was like, yes, sir, it does. So every Saturday we would work 2 hours on swimming. And it was just like, look, I know I'm out of my depth. I know physically and mentally I can do it, but I'm just not fast enough right now. And I just need to take advantage of it. And I realized that the instructor staff are there to facilitate. They're there to facilitate you graduating. If you want to be there, they're going to make sure that you are up to par. But if you don't want to be there, they will gladly facilitate you leaving. So I realized that physically and mentally I could do it. And once I settled in, I just had a great time with it. And I knew it was the right choice, and I knew it was the right thing for me to do. And, I just fit in. And going through training, you come through Hell Week, and it's 5 days of no sleep. And we started off with 166 guys in our class, and 36 made it through Hell Week. And then by the end of the course, only 18 of the original 166 graduated with class 212. And then we went to the training course, and then went, I started before September 11th. So 4 years, we weren't really doing a whole lot. And then it kicked off almost 20 years, the rest of my career, either in combat, prepping for combat, or supporting combat operations. And so I was enlisted, and the stars aligned that I could become an officer. So my commanding officer said, hey, you have to go as high as you can and get a letter of recommendation. So I happened to meet a gentleman named James Stockdale. His best friend was at a party. And I said, hey, sir, his name was Dean Laird. And Mr. Laird was the only fighter ace in the Pacific and European theater. And so he's at this party. I'm like, oh, this is great. So, hey, Mr. Laird, I need a letter of recommendation. Do you mind writing me a letter? And he said, oh, son, I'm not really good at that stuff, but I have a best friend who'll be happy to do it. And he said, gave me his contact info and said, you talk to Jim, and he'll see you on Saturday. I was like, great. I don't know who Jim is. And he's like, oh, Jim Stockdale. And I was like, wait, this guy, Medal of Honor, and we have a school, SEER, Search, Evasion, Rescue, Search. SEER, I can't remember the name of it, but it's an acronym for survival training. And, it's based on his time in Vietnam. And he was a prisoner of war for years. So this legend in the community is an admiral and a Medal of Honor winner. And I'm going to be sitting in a room with them interviewing for the slot to become an officer. And he was the most kind man I think I'd ever met, especially on what he'd been through. So we sat and just talked for 4 hours, and it was fantastic. And I leave, and I'm like, okay, that went really well. And next morning, 8 o'clock, 8 or 9 o'clock, I get a phone call, and it's like, son, where are you? And I was like, sir, I'm on my way. And his dementia had kicked in, or it was starting to manifest a lot more. And he had forgotten that I'd been there the day before. And so I got back in uniform and went back to the house and had the same interview again, and just as wonderful. And he ended up handwriting a letter of recommendation for me. So that was if you have somebody who won the Medal of Honor writing your recommendation. I mean, you're going to get in the officer candidate school. But it was taking a little too long. So I call him and check in. He's like, hey, where's your OCS package? I was like, sir, they haven't looked at it yet. And he's like, damn it. Hangs up the phone and goes to the special warfare command and basically walks through the door and says, who do I got to screw around here to get Petty Officer Greene into OCS? And with that level, there's protocols with admirals and Medal of Honor, and it's a big ceremony. So they're like, who is Petty Officer Greene? And they're like, I don't know who the hell that kid is, but he's in trouble because he didn't tell us that an admiral showed up. So he hand wrote a letter for me to get into OCS, and he was just the kindest gentleman. So that kicked off my officer career, and I went through officer candidate school and graduated in January of 04. And then I was right back into um, the East Coast SEAL team, and we went to Iraq right away and came back. And then I was at the boat team, which was direct support of the SEAL teams. And I went to that command, and it was fantastic. Those guys have a really hard job, and they didn't really get um, a lot of enough respect in our community, in the SEAL community. But I had worked with them previously, and they were just even better um, when I went to the actual command. So went and deployed with them in 07, 08. And then I was kind of tired, and then I contacted our detailer and said, hey, I need to go to grad school. It looks like there's a billet open. And I was just going to go to low intensity conflict course. And it was basically just a way to reconnect with your family and not be out the door for 6 to 8 months a year. And she said, well, you have 3 kids, right? I was like, yes, ma'am. She's like, well, I'm going to send you to get your MBA because you have too many damn kids. And I don't want you to retire and not have a good job for all those kids. So you're going to get your MBA. And I was like, Margaret, I flunked out of college. I'm barely qualified to do this thing. She's like, you'll be fine. So I show up at grad school to get my MBA, learning economics and finance and calculus all at the graduate level, and it sucked. I was awful. But I knew I was what I wanted to do, so I ended up graduating with honors with an outstanding thesis award, and got my pick of going back to SEAL Team 8, and I did my officer in charge tour there, and just another fantastic tour of great men I was working with, and got everybody back home from Iraq and Afghanistan. And at that point, I knew I had some gaps in my professional career, and I needed to, you know, holistically learn how to manage and lead a team and a command eventually. So I did an operations tour, and then did a tour overseas because I wanted my kids to experience another culture. Went to Europe, and then I retired from Group 4 in 2016, and that's when the issues of traumatic brain injury and PTS started to manifest, because you've been in this career for 19 years, so you're a subject matter expert on it. But what I realized is I had a really hard time learning new stuff. So when I retired and took a job at the University of Southern California and was learning fundraising and learning a new city and not being special anymore, I was just Mark. I wasn't Mark the Navy SEAL. I was just Mark who just showed up at USC. And I realized that I couldn't learn as fast, or I couldn't, the information was in there, I just couldn't pull it out as fast. And I really just started to struggle and started doing research on traumatic brain injury. So not only did I have impact TBI from football, but I also had wave propagated TBI, which manifests, and the symptoms are completely different because waves cause damage in a different way than impact does. So I had both. And finally, when life settled down, and I was calm, that's when all the other stuff started to manifest. And I was not prepared for um, what I was experiencing. New city, new job, um, and unfortunately couldn't keep my marriage together. So, what do SEALs do when you're faced with adversity? You pile more stuff on. So then I said, I have a great idea. I'll apply for grad school at USC because I was there and just fell in love with the university. And I instantly had a tribe again. And USC is a little bit of a cult, and we love it, and we love our university. And I just wanted to be a part of it because every time I would show up on campus, I just had this goofy smile on my face of like, I'm back, I'm back on campus. And I just got to engage with the athletes and with the school. I was just a kid again, basically. USC band was playing all over the place. And so I wanted to be part of this tribe again. I found a tribe because I realized early on that I would not be able to recreate the SEAL locker room again. That part of my life was gone. You're not going to recreate it. Um, but showing up at USC, it was another tribe again. I had my people, and I had my fight song, and I had my football team, and I could rah, rah, rah with it. So I really just embraced it. Um, but it took a toll. It really did. And I was not really any good at one thing. And so finally, I was at a point to where I was in a new city, not doing great at my job, not keeping my family together, and not doing good in school. And one day it hit me that I was like, well, maybe everybody in my life would be better off if I wasn't around anymore. I'm like, I feel like I'm kind of a burden. So why don't I stop being a burden? And it was a very short amount of time. And I had this wonderful friend who unfortunately had an attempt on their own life and understood what I was going through. And so she called just out of the blue and said, "Hey, are you okay?" I'm like, "Nope, I'm not." I was like, "I have guns in the house. Can you just come over and just take them away?" She lives about 30 minutes away. She said, "I'm on my way." So I left the house, locked the door, and took a 30-minute walk. And when I came back, sure enough, she was pulling in. And she just gave me a big old hug and said, "You're gonna be okay. We all love you, and we want you around." And I handed her the guns, and she said, "Okay, I'll talk to you soon." And I just took that time to put myself out of danger, right? And then I just had to realize, I looked over at the corner of my bookshelf, and there was this old notebook that I had. So I took it out and I just wrote gratitude log on it. So that night, I just started writing what I was grateful for. And I thought it was going to be 4 or 5 things. And it had been 2 pages of stuff I was grateful for. And that really just changed my mindset. I was like, well, I have all this stuff to be grateful for. I have these 4 amazing kids, and a job I really love doing. Um, and you're valuable. You're right. She was right. And this is why. And it was tangible and it's something I could touch, right? And so from that moment on, I just started a gratitude log every day and started the day off with what I was grateful for. And it really just changed my whole perspective. And once I finished that hour or a couple hour, you know, spiral of not being valuable or maybe better off as not being a burden, and just changing my mindset, it's like, well, here's what I'm grateful for. And that really just changed everything. Um, and I was at a university, so I said, "Hey, here's what I'm struggling with. What programs do you have?" And it's like, "Oh, we have this. We'll try this." And I just kept throwing darts at stuff. And finally, EMDR is what stuck. And it's a trauma-based therapy. And I had this wonderful therapist named Robert Andrews, and he works out of Houston. And he said, "I'm going to take care of you." And he started the process of getting all those memories and trauma moved out of my fight or flight to just into as a memory. So when I recall it, I wasn't reliving stuff. It was just, oh yeah, that happened, and it didn't stir up anything. And then I moved on to EMDR with neurofeedback, and then neurofeedback led to I've had 4 shoulder surgeries. At my last shoulder surgery, I was like, "Hey doc, I don't want to take synthetic heroin to recover. So give me a couple pills, but what else can I do to heal from my surgery?" He's like, "Well, just do yoga. It's better than medicine anyway." So I was like, "Well, it sounds kind of weird." And I've seen some of the poses that, I'm not enthusiastic about doing in front of people. But I did it. And so I kept did my EMDR, did my neurofeedback. I kept my workout routine, right? I cut out alcohol, and then I do yoga on Saturday. So gratitude log, the right therapy that worked for me, followed by just staying in a routine. And everybody in my life now is just good for me. And so I wake up, and I'm just surrounded by great people, and my kids are fantastic, and they're growing and thriving. And my she's 25 now and lives in Paris. My son's at getting his engineering degree. My daughter's getting ready to go to the same university for engineering. And I have a 15-year-old, and I have a great dog who's sitting right here. Um, and I've just figured it out. But it took a lot, and took a lot of support, and it took a lot of effort on my part. But it's just been fantastic. And I graduated from USC, so I'm part of USC forever, um, which is fantastic. And now I'm an author, which blows my mind because I was speaking at USC, and I don't know if you know Michael Gervais. He's a mindfulness guy, and we were on campus, and he was speaking to the class. And at the Q&A, one of the students said, "Well, hey, how do special operations guys get prepared for mindfulness?" And it's like, "Funny you should ask. We have one right here." And he's going to tell you all about it. And I look around like, wow, there's another special operations guy. I have to meet him. And he said, "So Mark, after the break, go ahead and talk to the class for 15 minutes." And I was like, "You bastard." That's what I thought. I was like, I'm not ready for any of this. So I get up and talk to the class, and it resonated with, and I was in my late 40s, and these students were like, "I get it." And a couple months later, fast forward, I think it was Kobe Bryant was going to speak to the class, and Kobe couldn't make it. And my friend Glenn said, "Hey Mark, I know you're getting ready to go home, but can you our keynote speaker couldn't make it. Do you mind sitting in for Kobe?" I'm just like, sitting in for Kobe, really? So I go over and sit in for Kobe, and talk to the students, and it was just the best experience. And I spent an hour talking with them, but then I stuck around for the next hour and just answered questions, and realized that Navy SEALs are rare, and they're not everywhere. And I was just happy to talk to these students. So that started off every semester. I would talk to the students, and I still do it every fall at USC. And so one night, a gentleman was in the audience I had met. He's a CEO of Pivotal Moments Media. And he said, "When are you going to write a book?" And I was like, "Sir, there's so many people with more interesting stories than me. I'm just going to stay in my little USC niche and come talk every once in a while." So he heard me speak, and he's like, "All right, I've had enough of you. 4 ghostwriters, pick one. We have the funding set aside. As soon as you pick your ghostwriter, start writing your book, and you have 8 months." I was like, "Oh, okay. Well, you're not the boss of me anyway." I was immediately protesting, and it's like, but I had a mission, right? I had something to do, and started realizing that maybe if I tell about my difficulties with transitions, it might resonate, because I was working with veterans students at USC, and they were struggling because they're like, "Well, I'm a student again, and I had this military career. I don't know if I'm going back to it. And one of the things that happened was they like my family is also struggling. And then I was like, well, actually, you know what? The family transitions as a unit. It's not just a service member. It's everybody transitions. So as I was writing the book, I started with on a micro level, wanting to talk with veterans, but on a macro level, you want to talk to the spouses or significant others, or maybe the child read a book and say, hey, dad, mom, I just read this story and this sounds exactly like what you're going through. Maybe you should read the story. And so that's really the goal, is to when talk with the veterans that you might be going through a transition of getting married or having your first kid, or an athlete who has been doing their sport or their trade for hundreds and thousands of hours, expected to go to the next level and never get the phone call. So you're a professional at something else, and there's a transition with that. Or you're an entrepreneur and somebody buys your company, and all this time and effort and love you put into this company is somebody else's now. And now what are you going to do? Um, I lost my father. I lost a best friend. I lost so many friends to taking their own lives that I was like, if I have a chance, I want to stop or give people an alternative to a permanent solution to a temporary problem, possibly. And so that's why I wrote the book. Initially, it started off as one transition book, and then it just kind of grew to something completely different. Um, and it launches on the 22nd, which I can't believe. Um, and I'm really, and it's something I was really proud of, but I also wrote it in a way that I want my kids to be proud of it. Um, I want my mom to be proud of it and my family to read it and say, okay, yep, this is the Mark I know. And so yeah, so that's really my story on how we got to this point to where I'm on the show talking about a book that I just wrote after flunking out of college. you know.
Mark, that is just incredible. What a beautiful sharing of your story. And you just have such a great spirit. I remember thinking that when we were talking, previously, just
Yeah.
you have such a great spirit. And I love the humility that you had I mean, I think that's why you're here, because you had the humility to share and ask for help.
Mhm.
And it's a really cool story of how you bounced forward. And I think it's just going to help a lot of people because, you've been so generous with your thoughts and your thought process and kind of the details of what happened and where, we hear that all the time. It's that transition, the grief that comes along, the
Mhm.
disorientation, all these things that happen. And which you're right, transition process, I mean, we all transition and
Right.
from something, but just to hear it from somebody that, people look up to Navy SEALs, because how many people can do what you did, and
Mhm.
recover the way that you are. So it's just a beautiful story. I'm so happy for you. You are definitely modeling resilience in such a powerful way for your family and for your teammates and for anybody who hears your story. So I just want to thank you, and I want to open it up to others to make a comment or if you have a question. So thanks again, Mark.
You're welcome. Thanks for having me on.
And then Barry,
It's good to see you, Mark.
You too. How are you?
Yeah, good. It's nice to see you face to face. You know, Mark, it's interesting. I saw your book being advertised on LinkedIn, and there was that photograph of you. And then I started reading down and I saw your 6 categories.
Uh-huh.
And I went, hell, this is a Navy SEAL with a difference. Hey, there's something gentle and deeply insightful and switched on. And it wasn't push yourself till you bleed and push yourself till your heart wants to die. There was something extraordinary. And I mean, I'm still waiting for the book to arrive to read it. And you haven't raised those 6 categories today.
Mm.
But after spending 22 years working out this transitioning stuff, and then I saw your categories, and it's important, I think, for people to hear them. There was isolation and then indulgence, and the
Mhm.
cocooning and the emergence and the grief and the resolution. And I went, man, this guy is nailing the transition process in the most sensitive and insightful ways. And you're hitting every little piece of territory that people move through. So, one, I want to say thank you. I'd love to know more. And I don't know if today's the time, but I know, geez, I really would love to grab you on one of the transitioning talks and start nailing out all the territories that you do touch on so profoundly. But I'd love to know aspects of what were the core things in that transitioning. What was your cocooning, or what were
Okay.
the, I know the things like EMDR, which is great, and the yoga
Mhm.
and the body-based modalities, but how did you get to those?
So it was by accident. My editor, so my editor was, she said, "Look, Mark, you're hitting points, but I think you can refine it." So one night I couldn't sleep, and I wish it was a better story, but one night I just woke up and I had it. I was like, so I am an introvert by nature, so I do my best thinking and processing and isolation, right? So I just either doing a workout by myself or riding my bicycle by myself or going on a walk with my dog. I just do a lot better by myself. So I decided, like, you know what? I'm not gonna in a group setting, I'm not gonna be my best. So just isolate, go into your own little safe space and just work through what you're going through. So I said, well, I'm having trouble transitioning. I identified that. Um, and I don't know what I'm good at. I don't know what I want to do. I don't know where I want to live. And I don't know what I want to do when I grow up, right? So I took that, and then the indulgence part of it is I just gorged myself on information, right? And I call it indulgence because it's sometimes if you do too much, it's not good for you. But I just got fat on information and how do my skill set in the military. I can't just say, business A, I was a sniper for 20 years, hire me. How does that translate into um, leadership or persistence or attention to detail? That's speaking to what's tangible in the real world. And leadership is a SEAL. And so then I said, well, where do I want to live? How much do they make? What's the longevity of somebody at this point? What modalities can I do? So I really just took in all this information. And then I was sitting up one night and I was like, I feel like I'm transforming. I feel like I'm going into a cocoon. And then it's like, holy shit, I'm cocooning. And so I took all this information, gorged on it, and then just kind of isolated again. And I really felt myself transforming, or like, okay, I'm not free falling anymore. I kind of know what I'm getting myself into. And now I'm just letting that information just kind of marinate, you know. And as I started to understand what life was going to be like after I transitioned, I was like, I'm going to emerge as this beautiful butterfly. So, so that's what the emergence part of it. I just came out of it. It's like, okay, I get it. Okay, I understand what I'm good at, and I understand what this process was. So as I did that, I really understood. It's like, well, I'm still sad about my father dying. I'm still sad about my best friend dying. I'm still sad about the people I read about who've taken their lives. And I was like, well, I'm grieving or mourning the loss of my friends, my status as a SEAL, going to combat and doing just the weird stuff that's with that job, that really strange job. And I missed it and I loved it, even though I complained about it. And I had to come to the realization that, I'm grieving. And then finally, I resolved myself to the fact that, hey, you're not going to recreate the SEAL locker room anymore. You're not a Navy SEAL anymore. You have all the attributes still, but you know what you want to do. You know how to, what modalities you want to use to get better. And okay, you're good. You're gonna be fine. And now just surround yourself with the right people. And it's just been a great journey. It's been challenging, but that's how I came up with the 6. And I wrote them all at night. It took me 2 hours, and I sat back and I was like, well, shit. We've we've got something, and I really hope it resonates with people. It wasn't this beautiful thing. It's like, oh, I'm so smart. I've been to college 3 times now, and I'm just going to write this beautiful 6-step phase process. No, it was ugly, and I just had to wake up one night and it's like, holy crap, I had it all in my head, and I just started writing, and that's what emerged from it.
Yeah, thanks. They're pure gems. I'm looking forward to reading the book.
Well, thank you so much. You and I have corresponded, but it's great to finally meet you. And I try to respond to all the messages because I don't want it to be like, hey, thank you. And just, I want you to understand that, hey, I appreciate the time you took to watch the podcast and find out more about me. So I thought people deserve an honest response and not just thanks or, you know.
Yeah, I got you.
I do hope you and Barry and Mark having this conversation on the transition group, boy, that would be incredible. So I'm just putting a little plug in there. But anyway, great response. Thank you.
You're welcome. And Barry, thanks for the question, and I'm glad I could highlight that for you. And I'd love to talk to you more after this if you don't mind.
Yeah, we will.
Okay, great.
Awesome. And then Chuck.
Sure. Thanks, Sarah. What a treat to be able to actually talk with you, Mark. I think a lot of us have a perception with the Navy SEAL that they're very hardened, very tough. You speak with a softness in your voice that is very much resonant, with me, and just it helps me understand you. And it's kind of a gift. You're very transparent with your life, and I'm excited to read your book. And I say transparent instead of vulnerable, because transparent, you're not looking for empathy from any of us. You're actually being open with your life, and then you're sharing with us the solutions that helped you move through it. And that's the beauty of being transparent. We like a lot of, with first responders, especially in military, we like warm handoffs. We don't like being alone. You mentioned being separated from your tribe.
Yeah.
That connection. And since I always look at barriers to care, and you've had a lot of people that stepped in at the right time, things that you did that were the right time, because it could go down a very dark path. You had, it's always like, it's not a matter of time, it's a matter of timing with some things. So my question for you, as a veteran support, did you have financial support for all those things that you needed to do? My heart goes out to folks that may not, and I'm hoping that the military was there when they needed you, at least financially, to get you help.
Unfortunately, they were not there, and when I talk to people and they say, well, the military should help you with your transition, and I said, I understand that, but that's not their job. They have a mission to keep the force going and be ready for combat operations globally. And while you're in, they'll take complete care of you. But once you're gone, they're like, thanks for your service, and we appreciated you while you did. But the machine is designed to thrive without you. Happy that you're in it, but once you're gone, you're not their mission once you're gone. And I came out as a sweet spot to where a lot of nonprofits were really stepping up, and I just tapped into every nonprofit there was, and a lot of them were colleagues of mine or friends of mine who had gotten into the nonprofit space for specifically helping out, and I was just pretty much a pincushion experiment. And like, hey, do you want to come to this center and we're just going to give you head to toe? Yes. Do you want to try EMDR? Yes. Do you want to? I mean, it was just, I needed help and I didn't quite know what that help looked like. So I was going to try everything outside of like drug use, right? I didn't want to do antidepressants or whatever. I really wanted to do it naturally. So I was like, if it's natural, then I'll try it. And finally, one thing started to stick, and then another thing started to stick. And all of a sudden, I was like, okay, I got it. So my therapist, just a traditional therapist, she had said, you know, you're going through this. Where do you feel it in your body? And I was like, what in the hell are you talking about? What do you mean? Where do I feel it in my body? And my body was so lit up, I call it. It's just constantly, it has this buzz of fight or flight, right? So when she said, where do you feel in your body? I was like, you're fired. What are you even talking about? So after I did the EMDR and it cleared out a lot of that, you know, initial old new trauma that I was going through, I went back to her and she said, so where do you feel it in your body? And I was just like in my chest. And it was the first time I understood what that meant. You feel it somewhere. And I was like, well, Amy, I was getting ready to fire you, but after I after I did EMDR and it's like I get it now. So that really was a starting point to where just understanding what I was going through and understanding that um some of the darts are that you're throwing your issues at, some of it sticks. And once I realized that there's progress to be made, I was like, okay, well, now I feel it in my body. What's next? And then neurofeedback came back. I was like, that sounds weird, but I'll try it, and then and then it really helped. So and the modalities help, but I have these amazing people in my life that are just incredible. Some former teammates, and one of my dearest friends is a guy named Glenn Fox out at USC. The gentleman who was my mentor, he was just a father figure, and everybody in my life, I could list 10 things that are just wonderful about them. And everybody in my life now are there by choice, and they really just enhance life now.
Thank you.
Awesome. Your gratitude just comes across loud and clear, like as a
Oh, I
family.
love all of them.
Oh, it's so great. It's so great. Really does put you on a different trajectory when you're grateful like that. So thank you. Great share. So we have 5 more minutes for questions. So we'll have Holly ask and then end with Jim. So
Hi, Holly.
Hi, wow, Mark, thank you so much. A word that came to me when Chuck was saying is transparent versus vulnerable, and then my word was relatable, which you were so relatable, and which in a way is weird because I've never been in the military, but I have 2 sons who've served, and then and and one was Air Force, one was Army, and I work very closely now with the former Green Beret. So Navy, like, Sarah's got all these Navy SEAL connections. I really don't, but I will tell you one of my favorite authors is Admiral William McRaven.
Uh-huh.
And I've read every book. I've gone crazy collecting his books. And so I feel like in some ways I know you, just hearing, the swimming body, I mean, his books are just amazing in his stories. So in that way, I do connect. But yeah, I just want to thank you so much for sharing your story. And the other thing that really hit me, that's also already just, said we all get, and I want to confirm that from my side too, is that we all transition. And that you wrote your book because you knew the family transitions. When my son died, the whole world changed for our family, and at that time no one else was serving, so I felt like, okay, there's no more Air Force, there's no more anything like that. I felt lost. but that's, and so it gives me a sensitivity now working with veterans. One of my things is understanding that, yeah, their transitioning can be so horrifically frightening, to have lost your purpose, what you think you've lost your purpose in, your what was your purpose. I mean,
Yeah.
it's changing. You're not really lost, but so thank you for that. And I can't wait to read your book too. And I really appreciate it.
Well, good. Well, thank you so much. And I'm so sorry to hear about your son. And knowing that I have 4 kids of my own, my kids make fun of me because I'm such a goofy dad. And, you know, I don't always like them, but I always adore them. I always love my kids. And, and that's normal teenage stuff. But yeah, they're just such little treasures, as you
They're
know.
what we would give our lives in less than a heartbeat
Easy,
for them. The
easy.
last thing we want is for them to die. And
Yeah. Or even get hurt. I when they get a cold, I'm just like, oh, I wish I could take that for you.
get hurt, anything. Can I add one more quick little update for everybody here who knows my current project? While we were doing this, the name of the soldier that I've been looking for, that nobody knew about for 54 years, his full name, everything, his history, what's going on, where he is, everything came through. So just as a message to you guys, the miracle of the warrior brotherhood. You guys who serve, you know this better than I do, but I am so humbled. I am so humbled. And that's why, Mark, I look to you guys as, I'm kind of speechless, I guess is all I can say, but there's nothing like people who serve a greater cause, and first responders are right there with the same thing. So thank you for all of you guys for all that you do.
Awesome.
Thank you for supporting us.
Thanks, Holly. Mark, do you have time for one more question?
Yeah. Jim's been waiting patiently, so I will absolutely answer.
Well, just real quick, I think one of the things you said was very profound, and that was, it's not the Navy's job to transition you. And I think, when you said it, because in my world, in the first responder and public safety, I know a lot of people, I know the transition is difficult, the loss of tribe, all that kind of stuff. And I think there's that opportunity to become resentful, that like, nobody's helping me, that type of thing.
Right.
And I think there's a way to, assist with the transition and, that kind of thing. But I think you're right. It's not, I mean, the organization that you worked for, their job is to provide service to the community where you live or worked. And it's not necessarily, and they're going to give you a pension and, whatever, move on. And so I just thought that was a very interesting perspective, because I think a lot of people I know, they struggle with the like, okay, I've been gone for 2 years and what's the department doing for me? Or why aren't the people that are still working there reaching out and talking to me, or that kind of thing. It's like, you're a has-been, for lack of a better term, and then you need to kind of figure out where you go next. That's just,
I got lucky, I think, because I had that perspective early on, that their job is they have a very well drawn out mission, and they have to continue that mission. And like I said, I was well taken care of while I was in, but once you're out, there's like, hey, we don't have the resources to take care of everybody who served. We took care of you while you were here, which is also part of our mission, but once you're gone, we've given you a lot of tools and a lot of opportunities to thrive on your own outside of this organization. And the organization's still going. And it's a brutal fact, but it's an honest one. And a lot of people didn't understand my perspective on that, but I was just like, that's not their job.
my chair didn't get cold. There was a guy sitting in it the next day.
Yeah, I mean, he was warming it up that you were sharing it with him. Punk.
Well, for another conversation for another day, I would love to see civilians rise up to say, you know what, we're in this together. We're going to help our protectors on the back end. But all that being said, Mark, what a wonderful conversation. And again, to all of you, what wonderful comments, just a wonderful conversation, enlightening. Mark, as we end out the conversation today, what would you like us to walk away with?
Just continue to be mindful and aware of people who might be struggling in silence. And if you notice something, just ask, because I'd never shared my story, not because I didn't want to, just nobody had ever asked. Somebody said, "Hey, how are you doing? How are you feeling about transitioning?" First thing I said was like, "I'm terrified." And he's just like, "Wait, what?" And so many of us are feeling that way. And I only said something because he asked. I mean, a lot of the stories I share in my book, I've never shared before because nobody's asked. And I don't, and it's that whole thing of not wanting to burden myself with somebody else. And also, the lesson I learned was be honest and open with people who ask if you need help. Because the gentleman who helped me, he said, "Mark, I put this offer out 10 times and nobody's ever taken me up on it," because he was of a mind that if I ask a Navy SEAL if he's okay and if he needs help and he says, "No, sir, I'm good," he's like, "Okay, well, if anybody knows their status, it's this guy. So I'm just going to move on to the next person." If you're honest and say, if this gentleman's asking to help, he probably has the ability to help. So just let him know. And there's so many people are so enthusiastic and happy to help. When I said yes to Bill, he was more happy that I said yes. And just on top of that was he and I had become extremely close. And as I was wanting to be part of USC, I got into USC, but I went down to part-time, so I lost my benefit to get school paid for free. Or, so I said, "Hey, Bill, I got into USC, which is the great news. Bad news is I'm not going to be able to pay for it because I went down to part-time." And he just reached out to his network and said, looked at me in the eye and said, "Well, no son of mine's paying for college." And he paid for my education at USC. Yeah.
All because you were honest
Mm-hmm.
when you were having a tough time.
Yep.
And what an incredible story and a great conversation. And for anybody watching this, the launch date is January 22nd for UnSealed by Mark Greene. And I'll have your link in the description on our YouTube channel for this
Okay.
talk. And I just want to thank you so much. And I wish you the very best, Mark. So
Well,
thank
thank you. And please, if I'd love to come back because I was late but it's an important conversation to have, and I'm more than happy to have it again.
We'd love to have you. You are welcome anytime. All 7 groups we have going on weekly, but yes, even just to come on as a storyteller, we'd love to have you back, Mark. Thank
Okay.
you so much.
All right. Well, everyone, thanks for your time. And I have to go because I have to get to my other house, but it was great to meet you. And Barry, I can't wait to talk with you again. And like, no kidding, I would love to meet you in person.
Yeah, I've just sent you, well, come to Australia, but I've just sent you my details on LinkedIn. So get that, make contact, and then we'll work the rest from there, my friend.
Okay, perfect. I'll see you
Yeah.
soon then, okay?
Love you
Take care.
guys. Thanks, Mark. Take care.
Okay,
Bye-bye.
bye. Have a great weekend, everyone.
You too.
All right, bye-bye.